So where did you get your inspiration to become so involved in philanthropy?
Well, I first started, I guess, from my father, who always believed in doing things where you gave back to society. He originally had been a clergyman and believed very much that as part of being part of the human race, it was very important to give as well as to do things for oneself.
Has your mom been an inspiration as well? I know that you're very involved in giving to arts and cultural programs.
My mother is a great inspiration for me. She's an artist, and her sister is an artist and ran an art gallery, and my uncle was an artist. So there are a lot of creative people in the family, and that's one of the reasons why I've always had a great love of trying to support organizations that could help creative young people.
Why do you think arts and culture is such an important area to support?
Well, I think it's really what distinguishes us from other species. Part of the continuity of the human race is based on procreation, we all know that, but it's also based on innovation in science and different ways that people can express themselves, and that's through music, through writing, through the arts, through dance. Especially in the world today where science rightfully is so important in terms of technology and innovation and telecom and the internet and fighting diseases. I think it's equally important, though, that poetry and painting have their share of support.
Is there one thing that you wish you had done differently in terms of philanthropy?
Look, I think everything that one does in philanthropy is good. Clearly, I've learned along the way. I think early on, I wrote a lot of checks to different organizations, but I didn't really get that engaged in them myself. And more recently, in the last 5 to 10 years, there's been a lot more personal engagement of myself and my wife in a lot of what we're doing. So, for instance, we now fund the largest melanoma research organization. This came out of a personal experience where my wife was diagnosed with melanoma 5 years ago, and it was a real wake-up call. Fortunately, she is fine, but we really started learning a lot about cancer research. Essentially, nothing had been done for 40 years in the field. And even a lot of young people didn't want to take up that field as an area of endeavor. And in the last even 5 years since we've got involved, there's just been huge breakthroughs. Now part of it is the mapping out of the genome and the supercomputers, but part of it is the focus of a group like ourselves and really engaging the best and the brightest, both in terms of the established people in the field, but also engaging young investigators who are very excited now about what's happening. Two new drugs were just approved by the FDA. They also have salutary effects on other cancer research, such as kidney and lung cancer. So it's become very exciting. So my wife actually runs this foundation, and she talks the talk with the scientists, and she's now engaged with a lot of other research groups. We have alliance with Stand Up to Cancer. We recently did something with L'Oreal in terms of not only beautiful skin but healthy skin, and we feel that great headway is being made.
If you could give it all away right now, where would you give it?
I don't think I'm the type of person that gives it all away to one thing. Maybe that's my training in private equity, which is a portfolio approach, and maybe it's that as a problem solver, I'm interested in a lot of different fields. So I think we are getting great rewards in terms of cancer research today. So that's an area that we plan to keep pursuing. But as we talked before, we're very interested also in supporting the arts. Another area that I've been involved in is in Jewish continuity. So I'm publishing with Yale University Press a series on Jewish lives, from Abraham to Bob Dylan, biographies of Jews who have made a contribution to Western civilization. So I think in addition to that, I think we want to get our kids much more involved, and I know they're more interested in certain areas of education, so I think we're going to start looking there.
Who's the greatest philanthropist you know, or in history?
America especially is blessed with so many great philanthropists. In history, I would have to say the Rockefeller family is so extraordinary. I'm just such an admirer of what they've done generation after generation in so many fields. You look at MoMA today, you look at Rockefeller University on the science side, and so many other areas. But what the Gates Foundation is doing is awesome. What the Broads are doing, what Mike Bloomberg has done. Mike Milken is a personal friend, and I think his whole approach to empowering people, teachers, scientists, in terms of fighting cancer, in terms of solving problem solving, I think, is also a great model to follow. I think America is blessed with a lot of private philanthropy, which I hope will just grow and grow.
One last question. Do you think there's something holding back philanthropy in the United States, and do you think you're doing anything to kind of change the status quo, do things a little bit differently?
Well, I don't think there's anything holding it back. I think it would be better if we had a more robust economy. That's probably the biggest thing that's holding it back right now. The more wealth that's created at more levels, the better it is. When you look at cancer research 40 years ago, the money was there, but the science wasn't. Today the science is there, but the money, with all the government cutbacks, is more of an issue. We have found a great response in terms of our fundraising on the melanoma side, and in terms of a number of other projects that we're doing. So I think that philanthropy is very much here to stay, and hopefully it'll keep growing.